So I had this thought, and once I had it, I couldn't really figure out how to unhave it. The thought was this: what happens if you send every unsent email? Like, all of them. Every email you wrote but let linger, the half-finished ideas, the unsent confessions. Unfortunately, I'm me, and I'm really bad with unanswered questions that I can very quickly and painfully answer. So I did what any reasonable version of me would do. I went on stream and just started sending the emails. And yes, this is a terrible idea, but things were going actually kind of fine. Some of the emails were blank. They were easy to delete. Others felt cathartic, some even joyful. And then, of course, it happened. I can actually show you the exact moment right here. It was a draft sitting here like some kind of bullet sent through time, waiting to impale me upon the moment. The drafts folder, it is not just some kind of archive. No, it is a catacomb. It is a trap. It is just sitting there waiting to destroy you. And once you enter it, there is really only one way out. I will explain this very dumb idea. It all started innocently enough, as many bad ideas do, with a zine that I was making after watching a 24-hour Brian Eno documentary.
Why do we like music? I'm more and more starting to think that music preceded language. It was making noises together that people did first.
I really wanted to explore chants and play and to have a reconfiguring structure that was repeatable where no two zines would be identical. And because this was very difficult, I found myself procrastinating, cleaning out my inbox, my Gmail inbox, right? Inbox zero. No one, especially not me, can hold me accountable for the real productive work of inbox zero. And then I wondered, why is it that we don't clean out our drafts folder? Like, what is even in here? I will tell you, there is a very good reason we do not hear about drafts zero. So, of course, I went in, and a few hours later, I found myself totally lost, reliving all of these scattered moments. It was surreal, and anyone that's found themselves in the same liminal space, I think, knows what I'm describing. It's like a series of yous through time, but it's also kind of like a game of Russian roulette, but it's with emails that you've like sent and received from exes and like petty disputes that you decided that weren't worth resolving, invitations to friends never sent, and so many apartment hunting emails on Craigslist. But of course, I found something else in here too, right? I found my source material for the zine. The almost comical chance of one email being sent, but not another. The interruptions and the detours that wind up permanently changing and defining our lives. And then that part of my brain that loves to sabotage my life, see, reading every book you own, it offered me this: just send all of them, right? Just send them all. I often seek out the least likely thing to do in a moment, something I can feel myself really not wanting to do. And then I feel driven to explore these feelings by following the original impulse. I suddenly felt as if I had come to this moment in time that was buried within the drafts folder. I think that some interruptions hold the potential not just of like forward progression to inevitably again loop back onto itself, but bear with me here, breaking open history itself. And here I was staring at hundreds of unexploded histories, ruptures that were never quite able to tear through the fabric of reality, but that now found themselves preserved in a new moment, with an opportunity for me to light every fuse together and see what would happen. I knew that some of these emails would just be cruel, confusing, or totally irrelevant to send, and the idea may have died there. But I can also sense an excuse, especially one coming from within me, to not have to contact exes. So this created a second problem. That is, beyond how to find the courage to send these, how would I find the courage to delete the rest? What I needed were some rituals. As I find myself destroying them, I still love drafts, even as a permanent form. They're almost like these accidental diaries, and the knowledge that it doesn't need to be sent creates this beautiful space in between existence and non-existence. It's like some fractal expansion of all of the yous and all of the lives that you could have lived. There is this feeling of almost like deja vu, this mismatch between past and present, a feeling that something is returning again, but in an altered form. Somewhere I know that I have already sent these emails. Somewhere else I know that I haven't. Each draft feels like a crystallized misremembering, some echo of a possible past representing a different present that didn't happen, but it still lingers here, static and unchanging until we decide. Static and unchanging until we decide. An unsent email, I don't think is mere nostalgia or something of the past even. It is like a past that refuses to remain outside of the past. It sits outside of the archive in this space of potentiality. We carry within us this power of resurrection. Reading these doesn't feel like remembering. It feels like daring to re-enter the moment. It can be that painful. To step back inside and to approach again, to set aside the lie of finality. As it stands now, this folder is the like end of history. Everything is half written, suspended, never quite able to reach its conclusion. It feels like a microcosm of the world that I'm observing around me. These moments frozen in potential, repeating with slight variations, but never concluding. I find myself being drawn in by the folder. This illusion of history as static that keeps the past perfectly preserved, external, completely pinned and taxidermied. I don't want to observe my past, any past, as a tourist inheriting a collection of facts that they're going to browse. I want to free it, to make room for new things. Here, I either set it ablaze or I walk away completely. And if you'd like me to mail you a copy of the zine made up of the emails that I've been sending out, check out my Patreon. Each one is unique. It's currently $1 a month, and I send you zines, post exclusive videos over there, and you can watch me carry out really ridiculously bad ideas live. I don't think that the state itself is bad. I don't think there's anything wrong with a unique category of things preserved is not yet, maybe never done. The emails represent to me so many rooms that I obviously cannot re-enter, that can't be returned to. I know that. And these relationships, they are different now. They are, many of them, lost because both of us have changed so much. I am obviously not the person who wrote but didn't send those emails. I am some kind of new entity, confusing to me, that is sending them now. The drafts folder accumulates the residue that resists integration and resolution. It is a chain of lives never lived. It is an instantiation of heterology. And somehow, miraculously, we're allowed entrance to glimpse it, but only ever as proofrock, perpetually at a false threshold. But here I become the prophet, and here a great matter for you. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, lies the shadow. And here is my shadow. I was living in Watertown, Massachusetts, in a beautiful attic apartment. Our landlord had given us a ridiculously cheap 6-month lease, but then immediately sold the building to someone who planned on demolishing it. We had a downstairs neighbor, but we never met. We just kind of communicated through the music that we played through the floor and the ceiling. At the time, I had a radio show. It was called Radio, and I started hearing related sounds coming up from below. I finally met her when I heard the smoke alarm go off. She stood at the door and said she wasn't sure how to get it to stop. The next few months were chaotic, and we bridged our apartments, unlocking the door that connected them to create this one exploratory space. She was weird in ways that I didn't fully understand. But I can say what we did. Cover our walls with poetry and Nietzsche. Store a copy of Gramsci's prison notebooks in her oven to prove a point that we'd remember. She handed me the book back a month later, the cover perfectly preserved, but every page in it turned to ash when I opened it. This perfect metaphor for memory, yes, but also for these drafts themselves. The preserved but impossible to truly access, crumbling the moment that we tried to grasp them. We had a pact that if things ever got really bad, if either of us was ever in a really bad place, we would just send the other horse emoji and get one in response. The only requirement to respond was that we were alive. She constantly built worlds, entire worlds, but as soon as she left them, it felt as if she could never quite find her way back inside. Ostensibly, she was working on a great novel, but she would never share even a single page of it with me or anyone else. There was no great falling out, there was no violent, tragic event. A few years passed, and then more. I had a bad summer, and I finally sent the horse emoji. This draft ultimately is the only email that I cannot touch. It is impossible. Believe me, I've tried. But that place, that orange couch, they're gone. I should know because I tried to repurchase every item from the attic in that apartment and recreate it here in my basement to make the B-roll for this video like really weird. I got as far as finding the same lamp on eBay, and the guy who listed it just never sent it to me after I paid, and that felt kind of appropriate. Also, ostensibly, I'm trying to make these videos a little bit faster, so I probably should not build exacting historical sets for each one. Digital immortality, the preservation, these are illusions. There are errors, things get deleted, hard drives tragically crash, entropy reigns, but they do still serve as talismans of memory. These drafts are more like messages to ghosts. And I don't mean just the ones that I wrote to other people, also the ones that I wrote to past versions of myself. These are people who cannot possibly exist again. But Elle probably would have seen this part coming. I do still believe in the transformative power of pain and loss, and letting it guide me into something new. And by letting this email set alone, singular in every sense, it can become this, a love letter, finally sent. Not to her or to suffering, but to that liminal space of possibility that so often collapses to nothing, but sometimes, rarely, sparks anew something living inside of us. That some connections are just so durable that time and personal change and great loss are nothing in the face of that unbroken unity. When I think of Elle, I think of this. Letting the house destroy itself before its impending collapse by filling a room with birdseed and acorns and opening up all of the windows. Her insistence that we steal lawn gnomes for each other to keep us company while the other was away. The snow as we said goodbye. Sprinkling sugar on her pizza. Belle and Sebastian and photo shoots, and sitting in her kitchen for 2 hours on the floor, saying absolutely nothing but pushing our heads into one another. Her not wanting to watch this really ridiculous video that my partner and I made for her to try to lure her back to Watertown. She let it sit unwatched for weeks, horribly anxious, and then hit play, and suddenly we were upstairs again. There was a time before this. There was a time before everything was an archive or non-archive, before it became something that we could only reference in secondhand light. There were late nights on that stupid porch, so late that we would watch the sunrise, absolutely refusing to acknowledge it, as we stared at the space in the sky that it would soon occupy, the ridiculous blue suburban light before the sun forced itself known again. Seeing how long we could stare at that spot before the sun burned our eyes closed. Shoulder to shoulder, counting seconds out loud, stretching time so far that it might stop. It didn't. But sometimes time does stop, and in that moment, we can either let history repeat itself, or we can break the cycle. There is a difference between keeping something in the past and keeping something from ending. This email is not mine anymore. It belongs to a version of me that so clearly no longer exists, that cannot exist. I remember knowing her was singularly important, like a feverish note pressed into a pocket, and ignored until just the right moment, the only moment. So this bullet remains unsent, something unfinished, something appropriately forever suspended past this existence. But in that state, it finds now here a form. Time finally displaced. I am now here and everywhere. The past is happening again, but not to me. Somewhere she is still downstairs. I am still upstairs. And in this version of life, the doors between our rooms are permanently unlocked.